Hello everybody, I am Rich from Goblin Gaming. This is the second try. We just tried to do this live stream a minute ago. Sitting here with Sean from OrcPainterNerd. He doesn't mind which way you do it. So Sean has kindly come in today. He's going to join us for a little bit of a chat. We're going to be having a look at some painting different to what you might have normally seen him do. With his, he's very well known for his airbrushing and his weathering effects on tanks. And you may have seen the other week, we'll have a look at slightly later, his frankly disgusting defacing of a wonderful pop vinyl that he has made the coolest looking. It's no longer a blood angel, but we'll be having a look at that later as well. Anyway, Sean, first of all, thank you for coming in.
No, that's fine. I'm glad to be here.
Cool to have you up here. You may have seen us do stuff with Sean in the past. He's been one of our affiliates for a very long time, going on 5 years now.
Yeah.
So, well, let's start with your painting. Let's ask you some questions. How did you actually get into painting miniatures? Did you have an artistic flair and wanted to give a crack at miniatures, or did you pick up a miniature, realise you were brilliant, or were you like me, you picked up a miniature, realised you were terrible, and then hopefully maybe 5 years down the line I will be doing what you do?
Well, I basically started from being interested in drawing pictures and that sort of thing. So from comic books, I used to collect comic books, so I got into superheroes, that sort of thing. And one day I was up a town high street and I just stumbled across the Games Workshop with my dad. I think I was about 10 or 11 at the time, very young, and I was just wowed by the beautiful painted miniatures in the window, in the display cabinets, and my dad could see straight away I was taken aback by what I was seeing in the window there of the painted miniatures, and I think that started my love for painting and collecting miniatures. But that was when I was younger, and those miniatures look quite shocking. I can assure you.
White metal, and that was when I first got my first miniatures. I had plastic ones, but then it was white metal. Was all the popular things. I remember leafing through the old magazines, and you could like back order from the catalogs, stuff like that. And like, do you remember what your first miniature was?
It was probably a Space Marine, to be honest, or a Space Orc. I can remember it was probably second edition, maybe 40k, maybe. I could be wrong here, but I remember the Orcs had such static poses back then.
They did, yeah. They had like an axe.
Yeah, they did, and then a gun, and like it was very static, very stiff.
Sort of like this. And then there were the Gretchens just holding.
Yeah, that's it.
I remember them. That was probably kick the table. That was probably my first army as well. So bear with me. I'm just going to make sure we're actually appearing for everybody on Facebook. Yeah. This is the wonders of going out live. Is the constant tech difficulties we've had this morning. It looks like we're good. I think I see us there. Yeah, we're live. Wicked. So guys, before I go back to what Sean was just saying, if you have questions for Sean, pop them in the chat box. I want to have some interaction here. If you're interested in the painting, if you're interested in learning a little bit about, because we're going to have Sean painting a model for us live.
A really nice one.
This is a really nice model. We're focusing on the cloak, the robes, and the clothing, which is stuff that I know some people find a bit more difficult. So before we crack on, so share this stream with your friends, tag them in it so they can see what we're doing. That would be fantastic. Give us some love hearts when you like what we're doing. Yes. Give us some thumbs up. Give us some sad faces if you don't like what we're doing. But,
not too many sad faces.
Yeah, because whenever you click the sad face, it comes up on the screen, and it might be distracting if Sean is just rained on by sad faces. Anyway, so I digress. Yeah, your first model, the very static Orcs, Gretchens, that's what I remember having.
Yeah.
I remember painting really badly, slopping it on.
Yeah.
I was quite young. Painting has come a long way. Like in front of us now, you've set up what you're going to use today.
Yeah.
We have layer paints, base paints, glazes, there's technical paints. That we didn't have that.
No, it was, I think when I was painting from the start of the hobby, inks had only just come out, and then that was a new technique, using inks before washes came out, and I think that left all the miniatures with a glossy finish. But it's come a long way now, and especially like you was lucky enough to get to try the new paints.
They were they're very interesting. They're very I've seen good stuff, I've seen people saying very negative stuff about these new contrast paints. I like them personally. I've seen them used on a range of models. What they seem to be fantastic for is painting scales and fur and the fleshy models
quickly.
They seem to work really nicely for that. Someone had a Slanesh army, and it just looked fantastic. The sort of scales on the beasts that they ride look brilliant, and then a Beastman army was fantastic too.
Yeah.
But then for people like yourself, I'm keen to see what you do when you get your hands on them.
I think they're going to be fantastic for the beginner.
Yep.
But also, because they seem highly pigmented, they can be great for like glazing and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, well, the pictures we threw up the other day, you could see the model once it had dried. It did have a very nice shined glazed look on it, which was really interesting. We've got some people saying, hey Jason, hey Adam, great to see you guys doing this. Yeah, brilliant. I can't wait to try the contrast. No, well, I got to play around with them. Yeah. Sean's obviously very keen.
Yeah, so, definitely.
What did we do? We played around with a Plague Marine, but my friend Stephen from Vanguard was playing around with it, and he painted it completely the wrong colour, but it still looked great. I saw some guys painting Plague Marines with basically a Blood Angel colour.
Oh, right.
Looked really, really nice, and I can see how you can do this very quickly and then just touch them up.
Yeah.
So for people who are kind of like me, not very good at paint, I enjoy painting, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not very good at it. So these paints will let me feel like I'm good at painting, still get the enjoyment of painting.
And that's what you want, really.
Yeah, and also I don't want to sort of throw like my family situation into it, but you know, I'm not single. I have 3 kids. Yeah. Very demanding of my time. I would love to spend more time painting, but these are going to save me so much time, which I could be, you know, actually playing with the minis.
Yeah.
So for someone like myself who wants to get them on the table, and who isn't very good at painting, it would take me a very long time to do a full Horde army.
Yeah.
So there's that to it too. So I'm very excited for them because of that, and I think my sort of demographic may be where they're more aimed.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of the professional painters like yourself maybe enjoy the whole process and don't want to skip those steps, and probably can get a better effect by doing the full thing, I would say.
Well, yeah, and like I say, they will be brilliant for the beginner. But don't just think of the beginner, because they're going to have properties that are going to lend themselves to people that have been painting for a long time as well. I think what it is, people are thinking that these paints are washes, but they're a bit different from washes. Yeah. They may be applied like a wash, but the pigmentation of that paint is completely different. If you just washed a miniature with Null Nile, for example. If you washed a miniature with Null Nile, it would look all choppy and whatnot. But these paints, from the results I've seen, they look fantastic.
Well, yeah, and they're good fun to play with. You really do slop them on.
Yeah.
there's no. It's one thick, heavy coat that you put these paints on with, which is cool. So, but like today, again, going back to paintbrushes, we're using paintbrushes. You're well known for your airbrushing.
Yep.
You're well known for airbrushing larger models.
Yep.
So I've really kind of thrown you in it by giving you a small model and a paintbrush today to work with. So this is a little bit out of your comfort zone. Let's just show everybody. So if I just swap our camera angle here, you can have a little look at what Sean's going to be having to play with. There we go.
Yep.
Tell us what you're looking at here.
So what we've got in front of us is a Gene Stealer Cult Mini with a very nice cloak. And what we're going to do really is use the Games Workshop painting method, which is to base the miniature, to layer it up, and then we might, if we've got time, hopefully use a glaze on top of all the layer painting that we do to bring it all together. So that should look really nice.
That's cool, because I know a lot of people really struggle on cloth, on banners especially. These techniques can probably be applied to like the banner bearers. I hate painting banners up. And just the units with ropes. There's so many painting tutorials I tend to see, or you can find painting tutorials for everything. People focus a lot on armor, the weathering effects, because there's not as many units I find in people's armies that have the cool flowing robes, unless you choose a particular army.
Yeah, that's true.
It's going to be nice to have a look at that today as well. Let's have a look. What's Jason saying? Remember one of the first box sets when you would get a Space Marine and an Orc army? Static pose. Yeah, that's exactly what. Yeah, my first box was my brother who wanted to get into painting, into Warhammer, and my brother was the one who bought the box, and he unloaded all those Orcs and Gretchens on me, and then we found like a load of a car boot or something to flesh the rest of that out. That's how we first got into them. Contrast paints all the way. Allow me to start an Imperial Fist finally.
Oh yes, yellow hard colour.
Beige yellow paint that isn't either thick ice cream or thin as water. So you'll understand more what they mean there. I don't do a lot of painting with yellow.
What was this one? Sorry.
I dream of a beige yellow paint that isn't either as thick as ice cream or thin as water.
Yeah.
Is that a problem that people have?
Yellow is a very difficult paint because, like he says, it doesn't coat generally that well. But Games Workshop's Avalon Sunset is a very nice paint.
Yeah.
And as a base to actually then build up a lighter yellow on, it's a really nice colour to work with. But yeah, I can see his problems with yellow. You paint yellow.
I wouldn't do yellow without an airbrush.
No,
not anymore.
This is interesting. So we're going to have a little talk about airbrushes as well while you're doing this, because I've never painted with an airbrush. That's something I'm going to look at in future, and I know what it's like for people to be a little bit apprehensive. It's an outlay. It's a big piece of kit.
Is.
And it's scary. You're spraying paint at your whole model.
Yeah.
There's so much that can go wrong, especially when you've got big fat man hands for yourself and then just all over the place. But yeah, it'll be interesting to hear what Sean has to say, the differences between how you would approach this model with an airbrush versus how we're going to have you doing with paintbrushes now.
Yeah.
So what are we doing with this model? Let's get a close in on the model and let's have a look at it.
Yeah. So let's start off with the very basics. Now, you don't have to prime plastic miniature, but I would say it's really good that you do. This miniature in front of us, as you can see, has been primed. And what it does, it gives a nice, smooth, even tooth to the miniature, if you like, where paint will just glide onto it. If you actually paint on unprimed miniatures, the paint just doesn't go onto the miniature as nicely. And also, when you prime the miniature, it actually brings the details out, so you can find it easier to actually paint as well. So that's the very start of painting your miniature, is to prime it, really. Yep. So and then what we're going to be doing.
So yeah, we're not going with the typical colours that are expected for this miniature.
No,
so what are we
not.
doing in terms of colours?
We're going for a red cloak because I think it's more of a danger colour, more of a sinister colour, and I think it'll look a little bit better than the purple that he's seen on the actual box art. But that's my personal opinion on the cloak. I think he'll look nice in a red cloak. So what we'll do, we'll start, if it's okay with you, to start painting. So always shake your paints first of all, make sure the paint's thoroughly mixed. And we're also going to be using a palette, as you can see in front of us. Now this is just a tile, so you don't need anything spectacular to use as a palette. You can use an old CD, Tupperware lid, that sort of thing. And as you can see, if I move...
It's alright, I just knocked the camera.
Oh, right, okay.
It's alright, it only went off for a second.
We can thin it down like so.
Yeah.
And now we're just going to paint it. Now what I'll show you is, if I just place some of the paint on the other side undiluted, you can see that it coats well, but it doesn't run as smoothly off the brush as you can see there.
Okay.
Now if I flip to the other side, and we can see how smoothly that's running down the cloak. So what I'm going to do now is just paint all of this cloak with a base paint corn red. I'm not worrying about the parchments because they could be touched up with say Xandri dust, for example, later on, which we're not going to be doing today, so I'm not worried about painting over the parchments at all.
So you can quite happily put the bone colours and the parchment
straight
colours
over the top. The great thing with Games Workshop paints, I find, especially the base paints, is they cover really well.
Yeah.
So painting over other areas or other details, see there, painted just a little bit too thin, and you can probably see on camera if I can just tilt it round.
Yeah, feel free to just stick it under the camera. Although the focus is kind of here, but it shouldn't make too much difference.
There we go.
So if you wanted to basically do this a different colour, say you wanted to do it purple, say you wanted to do a yellow cloak, you would basically just choose these types of
paint. Yeah, you go for the
steps.
Yeah, so if you wanted to do yellow, for example, you'd probably go with Avalon Sunset, I believe it's called, and then you as the base, and then you just work up with the lighter colour layer paints from Games Workshop.
Yep. So we start off with the darkest, and we build the lighter layers on top of those.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then we move on to glazes and technicals. So you've got two bases here. So what Sean's painting with, his base choice is Corn Red. Then we have Mephistone Red. And then we move on to layers, I assume it might be in this order, of Fire Dragon Bright, Wild Rider Red, and we have a glaze, Bloodletter.
Yeah, the glaze is really good. What we'll be using that for is once we've added all our layer paints, especially Fire Dragon Bright, which is bringing it to the orange spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's going to make the cloak look a little bit chalky. The glaze Bloodletter paint will take away that chalkiness from the orange and bring the colours back together, but you'll still have a really nice highlight.
Okay. So someone who is airbrushing this, so common questions about airbrushing, the actual accuracy of the airbrush. This is a small model. It's a shame you can't put this on full. You should be able to put this on full screen, I believe, or turn your phone to landscape if you're watching on the phone. And auto rotate should perhaps pop it up to full screen, I believe. And then you'll get a much better view there, Kiffer. Sorry, yeah, so an airbrush, you're spraying paint from a distance, right? So being accurate with that, surely that's difficult. Talk me through that. You've got a lot of accuracy with the nib of a paintbrush. What's the difference?
The difference is when you've got a paintbrush in your hand, you're actually physically touching the miniature, so you know exactly where the paint's going.
Yeah.
When you've got an airbrush, there's a disconnect between the miniature and the airbrush. You're not actually physically touching the miniature. So you have to get used to spraying with the airbrush onto the actual miniature and know exactly where the paint's going to go.
Yeah.
So that takes a little while.
Yeah. So you've got no mechanical feedback, basically. You don't have that tactile sensation.
No.
I guess if you're moving, you're doing it by eye, and you've got the feel.
Exactly.
As to where you're moving. But what about, and then I suppose if you're further away, it will increase the size of the area closer up. How does that work for very fine points?
Yeah, when you're working on fine points, you need to be closer into the miniature, but that's when things like pressure of your compressor comes in. Because if the pressure's too high and you went to spray with your airbrush onto the miniature, the paint would just hit it at such a force, the paint would just splatter everywhere.
Do we have anyone watching who uses airbrushes quite frequently? Love the t-shirt, yo Mike. Mine or Mike? Not Mike's, Sean's. Sorry, he's talking to Mike off camera.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you see me?
No, I can't see you. Just it knows the voice, no doubt. I'm wearing a Resident Evil t-shirt. OPN has his bespoke custom shirt on.
Yeah.
Sorry, going back to you. So, pressure of the compressor.
Yes, is crucial. I mean, normally I work at 20 psi, but it can vary depending on whether I'm priming or doing large scale things. Like, for example, I painted some beautiful terrain the other day, which you'll probably see on Goblin Gaming's site shortly.
We'll get it over here while we're waiting for this to dry, I guess.
Because time was against me and I needed to paint it quickly. Unfortunately, I put the PSI up to about 35 and I was just spraying from about 4 inches away in big spray patterns just to fill the actual model up with paint as quick as I possibly could. So you do get used to those things though.
Do you by any chance do any painting tutorials for Dark Angel, Space Marines or Imperial Knights? Have you done any videos on that?
I have got 2 Imperial Knight videos. I think I did a really cool Death Guard one converted Knight, so I've got a tutorial up on that on my OrcPainterNerd YouTube channel. And also I think I did a standard Knight as well, if I can remember correctly, but that would have been about a year or so ago, but the video will still be there to watch. So
Dark Angels.
And Dark Angels, Dark Angels, definitely. I've got some tutorials for Dark Angels.
Cool. So if that will be on your YouTube channel. So either you can follow the tag at the top of this video, which takes you to OPN's Facebook, or you can just search straight up on YouTube for OrcPainterNerd. and that should take you there. Have a look at those. Obviously, the keyword's going to be search for Dark Angel or Imperial Knights. Yeah, search for Imperial Knights. And will most of these be using a spray?
Yes, they'll mostly be using an airbrush, but an airbrush is just a tool. It's not not a magic tool. You can't do everything with the airbrush. So I use an airbrush to do certain techniques, but the brush is always going to be handy.
You can recreate. You just brush instead of airbrush, right? So
yeah.
If you're airbrushing it, we paintbrush it.
Yeah.
So that's there. So what are we on to now on the model? We're still doing the corn red base.
Yeah, we're pretty much finished now.
So what are these shoulder pads that we've avoided?
Well, I'm going to leave. Yeah, I'm going to just leave those white. We're not going to be painting any of the shoulder pads or the face in this video.
This face mask. I deliberately put that on there to
we can paint that.
You up.
Yeah, okay.
So normally this unit has the hood up and has a normal face, so I thought I'd be a little bit annoying when putting this together.
A top tip with painting miniatures, if I can just get it on the...
I'm going to put it on the front cam for you for a moment.
Yeah, just so I can see it on there.
Back to here. So where?
Okay, so top tip is if on your palette you actually roll the actual brush in your fingers.
Let's go more to the... There we go, we're looking more at the palette. Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, that's fine. Yeah. And if you roll it, you'll get a really nice tip on the bristles of the brush. And then when you actually go in to paint the face, you'll be able to get super, super accurate and smart details. These Games Workshop holders are fantastic. I normally just use a bit of blue tack on an old paint pot, but these are even better. So highly recommend these, even though I don't actually have one at the moment, but they are brilliant as I'm using it today. I will be picking one up. But yeah, you literally can get very accurate.
Yeah, that is very good. So fine tip brush.
Yes.
Look after your brush tips, obviously.
Yes,
so they don't
definitely.
Splay, and rolling them through the paint. The other thing I was going to ask you about was wet palettes and people's use of them.
Yeah, I use a wet palette, and they are great, but I'd say the more so you'll find that they come into their own when you've been painting for a while, because then you can use mixes that will stay wet on the palette for days if you've got a nice airtight lid on the actual palette. So wet palettes are great, yeah.
If you're doing batch painting over a couple of days, for example.
Perfect.
So I've got like 20 Plague Marines to do.
Yeah.
Wet palette.
Wet palette, definitely. Okay, so I'm just going to let this dry a moment, and then we're going to come in with some Games Workshop Mephiston
So this is quite. I've used this before when dry brushing around for like fire effects and stuff.
Yeah.
This is quite a. I would say this is quite a chalky sort of red colour. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it's a very nice red colour, and again, because this is. Make sure I don't splat the paint
I've done
everywhere.
That before, just like when you open a yogurt and it just goes.
Yeah, it goes. The base paints from Games Workshop are fantastic. I'm not a big fan of paint pots. I prefer dropper bottles.
Yep. We can let that dry for a moment, don't worry. You don't have to power through just yet.
No, yeah. But the actual base paints from Games Workshop are really good.
Yeah.
Highly pigmented and great coverage.
So you prefer dropper bottles?
I do, because the reason is, with paint pots, once you start using a palette, when you want to do mixing ratios, getting paint from a pot
I can see
to
that.
But with the dropper bottle, you can just very accurately put one drop of one colour on, one drop of another colour, write it in a little journal to say what your paint mix was, and you know you're done. But when you're trying to mix from the pot, it just doesn't work as well, and also they get crusty with paint and
dry out quicker.
But yeah, that's just a personal preference. I know some people actually prefer painting from the pots, but it is personal preference.
So I guess the best way is you mix by eye and you try and do the best job you can.
Yeah, that's it.
As you come back to
let's see how this is drying. It's getting there. It's going to be a minute or two, but it's getting there.
So we've still got plenty of you guys with us. If you've got any questions while we're waiting for these models to this one model to dry before we move on to the next one, just fire them up, because this is a very relaxed, very chatty little stream that we're doing.
Oh, I can see Mark J there. Love the t-shirt. Hi, Mark. I'll just say hi to Mark there.
Playing favourites.
Yeah.
So people have gone off to find your Dark Angels.
Ah, cool.
Just reading the messages that people have put up and the little love hearts and stuff that everyone's been throwing up. There we go. I've just contributed to myself to boost our own stream. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
No shame at all. So, this is nearing... These are drying very quickly, which is nice.
Yeah, this is really helping me that they're drying quickly today.
Quite warm in the office. Tom is very cold-blooded, so he has the heating on.
All right, what I'm going to do now is add some Mephiston Red to the palette.
Okay.
Again, always thin your paints down. Not only is it going to make the opportunity of using less paint because you're making it thinner, so obviously you're expanding it. It just goes on so much smoother. Again, I'll roll the bristles of the brush into a point to get more accuracy when I paint on the miniature. Now, as you can see, if you're new to painting, you'll probably think to yourself, well, you've painted it red, why are you painting it red again? But what we're going to do is keep all of the corn red behind in all the recesses, so all the inner parts of those creases there, we're going to leave the corn red behind.
Right.
And then with the Mephiston Red, we're going to paint on the top surfaces.
So it's highlighting almost.
Yeah, highlighting.
But on a very large part of the model.
Yeah.
So you can see that from the side. Sean's just tracing along like the ridges and the folds of the robe and filling in the gaps here as well.
Now I'm using a layer paint brush here from Games Workshop. You can use a slightly smaller brush if you wanted to take your time more, but as we are today, I think we're fine with a layer paint brush.
Yeah, bearing in mind I am making Sean speed paint this today, more or less. Still quite a few guys with us. If you haven't already, guys, just give us a little thumbs up so we know you're there. Give us a smiley face or an angry face if you really don't think this model should be painted in red.
Yeah.
Where's the art card for this model? It's kind of like a blacky purple. With the normal. I'm not sure if you will see that too well there, but not looking too bad.
No.
Very vampiric.
Yeah, very. Another tip as well, if you're edge highlighting, if you actually don't paint with the front part of the bristles of the brush, if you actually paint with the side of them, you can actually draw the line across the miniature, and that'll do the highlighting for you, rather than you trying to paint the highlight yourself.
So here's a good one. So you're using my brushes at the moment. Oops, sorry, I just punched the microphone. Sorry, everybody listening. Brush care. I don't do so well with some of mine. Some of them you may notice have got a couple of splayed. I try my best.
Yeah.
What's the best tips for looking after
best
brushes? Tips. One stray bristle can screw your highlights.
Yeah. There's some great products out there on the market that you can get. Masters brush soap, fantastic. You just literally wash the brush in the soap.
Yep.
And it'll keep the tips on the bristles nice and sharp and in great condition, to be honest.
So soap, is there anything you shouldn't be using on the brushes?
The worst thing you can do with the brushes is let paint dry in there. I don't think, when you're new to the hobby, that's brush care is probably the least thing that you're going to be good at. But the worst thing you can do is let paint dry. I mean, I'm doing it on rushing here today, but you can see when
I picked you up a new brush just for today.
Yeah, when you're actually adding paint to the brush, you don't want to get the actual paint down to the ferrule of the brush if you can help it. So
I'm guilty of having done that with this brush.
You want to try not to do that, because obviously that's where the paint can dry and also start splitting the brushes, and once that happens it's not good, because you're not going to get the accuracy from the brush if you got splayed bristles on the actual paint. Anyway, I'm going to start highlighting more around this lovely miniature now.
Master's soap is amazing, says Christian, who's gardening. What are you gardening? I like a bit of gardening.
Awesome.
Yeah, my beans have just grown. I've got a load of heirloom beans, which I got. Some different varieties, which are really nice. Little red flowers on them, so looking forward to them growing.
Cool.
Multicultural, this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like my gardening. It's another hobby for the patient, is gardening.
Yes.
Yeah, just stalked up my beans. They're doing good. I had some beetroot, a patch of beetroot in the corner of my garden, which I literally haven't touched for like a year because I don't know.
Yeah.
They're huge, absolutely huge. It's going to taste terrible, not going to be usable, but
To try.
hey. See, we do other things than paint and play board games.
As you can see now on camera, if I just...
Yeah.
We can slowly start to see those highlights coming through, hopefully, on the camera. I'm going to give it one more thin coat with this Mephiston Red, and then we're going to move on to the Wild Rider Red layer paint, which is a really nice reddy orange colour. So as you can see, I mean, I'm being fairly quick today doing this, but you know, take your time. These miniatures are beautiful, and you want to make the most of them.
Definitely some of the nicest ones to paint.
Yeah.
Let's go see if I can remove those grid lines. I cannot. So, you know, the grid lines, they're not really bothering me that much. But I just noticed that there are grid lines from the camera on the stream. But you know what, they look fine.
Yeah.
They're, I'm almost using them as a frame of reference where the model's being held.
Just going around.
Yeah.
That one's done.
Oh, the front one?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, the painting's going still.
That's interesting.
Oh, no, it's back.
Oh, yeah. Did that grid just pop up just now?
No, it's been on.
It's been there the whole
Yeah.
time, yeah. I can get rid of it, but it would require me to prod around on the camera while we're streaming.
I don't think it's quite that bad. It's not.
No, I quite like it.
Yeah, just nice smooth thin lines around the creases.
Jason, I'm painting my own Space Marine chapter. It's a light desert colour. I've had some advice, but it doesn't seem to be coming out right. Would you say to base coat in the main colour?
Yeah, if you want sort of like a desert colour, I'm thinking sort of like a khaki type of colours, maybe. Maybe Zandri Dust would be great, which is a base paint which comes out beautifully from Games Workshop. So if you maybe used a Zandri Dust and added something like a Shabti Bone as a highlight on top of that, maybe.
Almost skeleton colour.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose that is sort of desert colour.
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
So that would give you a very skeleton bone kind of colour. I guess then, depending on what you wash it with, would impact.
A nice,
skeleton.
yeah, a Seraphim Sepia wash would look nice on that. But then you could also start weathering it, add some Games Workshop Rhinox hide with some little paint chips with some sponge maybe on top of your vehicles. Look really nice on desert vehicles.
Cool. That sounds good.
Right, we're just letting the Mephiston Red dry. That's going to be another minute or so, I think, and then we can start going with the Wild Rider Red.
Okay. Army painted desert yellow. So let's pop that down. Let that rest for a moment. Let's have a look at this piece. So we're going to talk about airbrushing for a moment.
Right.
This
yeah.
gives me a chance to get those grid lines away while we do it.
Okay.
So Sean is probably sick of this right now. This is a piece of scenery that we had OPM, Sean, airbrush up for us, right?
Yep.
Which is going to be featuring on the games table. So hand that to you.
Yeah.
Very soon. Can you talk us over what you did with this?
Yeah, of course. So
Whilst I fix the camera.
the most important thing for me when painting these scenery was to get the colours to be consistent with each other. So I went for gold, and then I went for like a bone colour. And because I went for colours that are similar, the overspray that you get with the airbrush wasn't too crucial, so I didn't have to do much touch up, so it enabled me to save hours and hours in the painting stage. The bronze was done using, I think it was a Green Stuff World's bronze paint, a new paint that's on the market, beautiful paint. Agrax Earthshade from Games Workshop, and a favourite paint of mine has got to be Nicolac Oxide from Games Workshop, that gives that patina or verdigris effects on the miniature, and I absolutely love that.
Oh, I've used that a lot.
Yeah,
it's almost ghost effect on my.
Oh right, okay.
On top of a Celestia Grey.
Oh, very nice.
To give like a ghost effect on top of my Ythali's Guardians.
Yeah.
Similar to what you'd use in the Soul Wars box. So it is Soul Wars, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
The little Nighthaunt dudes.
Oh, I bet that looks really nice on those.
I've done that. I'm by no means a pro painter, but I've done. Oh, that looks quite good behind here, doesn't it? I've done that for that, so I like that effect as well myself.
But painting these up, lovely looking scenery, so detailed from Games Workshop there.
Yeah.
Just really nice.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So to do this, you chose what your base colour is going to be.
I started off, and which is always the best thing to do, if you're painting large items, go for the metallics first.
So you base coat it with a metallic.
Yeah, the reason you go for the metallics first is because when you get overspray with an airbrush, metallic flecks is very hard to cover up.
Yeah.
So you go for the metallics first. So we painted all the gold first, then we went for the bronze.
So let's just pop that here.
Yeah.
Now we can really see. So I've got rid of your grid lines for you guys. Oops, I'm just going to knock everything over too. Yeah, I'm being very careful with those paints that are underneath. So here we go. Let's look at that. That's beautiful. So you've airbrushed this. Sorry, I just cut you off completely.
No, that's fine. So yeah, airbrushing it, start with the metallics.
Yeah.
Get those out of the way first, and then you can build in the colours, which I did with a Vallejo Desert Tan, I think it was called.
Yeah.
And it's a primer, but it's a coloured paint, and I think those paints are fantastic. They come in larger sizes, so if you're doing a lot of terrain, it's going to save you a lot of money than buying small bottles of paint.
Yeah.
So buy the larger paints if you're doing terrain. And then we've got
the skull effect in this is brilliant.
Oh yeah, the little, it's called OSL, which stands for Object Source Lighting, was done so simply with the airbrush there on the lights.
Slightly smaller, maybe easy to hold that one in there.
Yeah.
Try and bend and break everything.
See how we're getting that
down a little bit there. Oh, you can see it next to the statues as well. The little red glowing lights. It's basically what, just a spray from the air gun?
Yeah. Takes 2 seconds to do, which could take hours with a normal brush. This is where the airbrush comes into its own, where you can do effects with an airbrush you can't do with a brush, and vice versa.
If you're scenery painting, it looks to me like airbrush is the way to go.
Without a doubt. Yeah, you would. I'd say there's probably about 5 hours worth of work between both of these pieces.
Yeah.
If you was doing with a brush, you're probably talking days, maybe a week.
Yeah, just to do the platforms. It took a long time.
Basing.
Yeah.
I couldn't go back to basing models.
Oh no.
No, I'm gonna have to learn myself. Mark J says this scenery is superb, and it is fantastic scenery. Andy, afternoon, both really enjoying this. Thank you, Andy. If you've got friends online who might enjoy it too, give us a little share to them. Let them see that we're painting masterclass. And Simon Daniel says hello, Sean.
Hello.
Yeah.
Right. So
cool. Sorry, I was just reading the message.
No, that's good.
So, scenery aside, that was a little distraction. If you want to ask more about the techniques that Sean's used on the scenery, a bit more about airbrushing, then go ahead, because this, as you can see on the camera, this looks fantastic. The bronzing, the metaling, the rust effects are all really cool, and this is going to look great on one of our gaming tables.
Right. Okay. So what I'm going to do now?
Put this out of the way.
Yeah.
Because I will break it.
Is
That's not a threat. That's just
we're going to start using the Wild Rider Red now, and as you can see, this is going to be a lot brighter than the Mephiston Red that we added before. So what we're going to do is add it in smaller amounts, so more so to the extreme edges of the folds. So the top surfaces of those folds, we're going to go, and as before, roll the bristles of the brush into a nice point, and then we're just going to just lightly go over those folds. Now what you'll find is that this is such a jump from the Mephiston Red that you'll notice it being just a little bit too strong, but that's when we're going to come in with a glaze bloodletter a little later on, and we're just going to tone it down a little.
So we're using a lot of people will be wondering, where are the wash? Why are we not washing this?
We don't need to wash. If you layer paint, you don't need to wash. You can wash. But the fact that we went from 2 base paints, which is the corn red and the base paint, and that alleviated the need to do a wash. You can do an all over wash, but we're not doing that today. We're just layering with this miniature. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go about painting a miniature, but a wash is one way of doing it, but we're not doing that today.
Okay. So if you're using normally if you're using just one base coat, say again Plague Marine, so you put the Plague Marine green on, that's all you do really. You wash it and then you touch up with Plague Marine green again. Really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we was going to do this miniature today with a wash, we would have used Caribou Crimson over the corn red.
Yep.
And then we would have touched it with the corn red again, but we've done it slightly different today.
This is interesting because actually last night I was painting the cloth parts red on some of my Plague Marines.
Oh, okay.
And I went for a very bright sort of screamer pink colour.
Oh, nice.
And then I washed it with the Drukai Violet.
Oh, yes.
To create a similar colour, but the effect isn't as good as this. So I still think it worked quite nicely.
And here we go. Again, using the edge of my brush here, as you can see on camera. See, he's got that really sharp fold there. Now, I could go in this way, but it's so much easier to use the side of the bristles to highlight.
Okay. So that side, I have a really nice view of that side highlighting. Don't know whether the camera has as well. Its distance from the camera is about here is probably the best focus as well, I reckon.
About there, okay.
Yeah, there we go. So this is the edge of the brush rubbing along the actual raised edge of the armour. Yeah, that's perfect, mate. That's perfect. Yeah. If you guys like these live streams and you keep watching them, we keep doing them, we will get multiple cameras of this quality. We have just the one camera at the moment.
As you can see, it's really starting to look nice now, the miniature, even at this stage.
Yeah, he's looking fab. It all starts coming together as you get the edge highlights.
Yeah.
It's odd because when you do the first one or the first two, you're like, why is there a bright red streak on the model?
Exactly.
And then as you do more and they kind of feather into each other,
you're
like, yeah, no, that's cool. That's a very, very vibrant, shiny robe.
Right, now I'm just going to do a few more touch-ups. I'm just going to use a bit of Mephiston Red here.
So we've gone back to the second base colour.
Yeah, the reason why we're doing that is I'm just feathering some of the edges that I've done that I'm just not happy with, where I think I've gone a bit too thick. Now the great thing about painting miniatures with thin paints is because it's thin, you're not going to clog up all of that beautiful detail on the miniature. And also, if you make a mistake, you can just go back in with your previous colour and paint over it. And again, because you're painting with such thin paints, because you're watering them down, you're not going to spoil any of the detail, and you can cover up mistakes really easily. It doesn't matter if you've been painting a month, 10 years or so, we all make mistakes.
Yeah. I make loads of them.
So
Christian Daniel moved out of range of the Wi-Fi in the garden.
Oh no.
Yeah, unfortunately his Wi-Fi doesn't quite reach the spuds, the potato patch. Just, yeah, I don't know what to suggest there. Okay. You can't do that thing like with car keys where you hold it up, can you?
Right, now I'm just going to let that dry for about a minute or two. It's nearly dry already, and then we're going to hit it with some of this glazed bloodletter. Now, in fact, I'm actually going to do an extreme edge highlight before I do that, actually, to be honest. This is layer paint Fire Dragon Bright.
Fire Dragon Bright. Okay.
Just give it a shake.
This is very bright and a much lighter tone than these other ones. So we've gone from a very deep corn red to this slightly chalkier, lighter Mephisto. Then it's almost into the oranges now with Wild Rider red, and now this is orange to me.
Yeah, this is pure orange. Yeah,
this is like high vis jacket orange.
So what we're going to do here is we're literally...
So this guy's got his high-vis cloak on. Because it's dangerous working around all these Necrons, right? Wait, he's not a Necron, he's a gene stealer. And sure, it's very dangerous working around them as well, to be fair.
We're just going to very, very thinly apply this orange here to these
mostly weeds.
Folds.
He's growing weeds. You know,
you shouldn't say that
to
on
be honest,
camera.
All the best gardeners must grow weeds, because I go to these gardens, they're amazing, and they're really good gardeners, and there's no weeds, right? So clearly, if you're managing to grow weeds, you must be better than them, right? Holding the phone to my head, worked out to get chat again. There we go. Just get some tinfoil. Wear a tinfoil hat in the garden.
Yeah.
No one will think you're weird. Sorry, go on. Sean.
No, that's fine. I'm just literally going around the very extreme edges of the cape with the orange.
This looks cool. I should have tried to do the same, shouldn't I? Next time, we'll have a paint-off.
Yeah.
Right? Me against Sean.
You got to do the same technique.
Same technique. We'll paint something awesome. Like, what have we got? I'll find something cool for us to paint.
Yeah,
that's true,
they're
yeah.
Lovely
Blackstone
minis from
Fortress
Blackstone
ones.
Fortress. Lovely miniatures.
Oh, yeah, there's that box I was just sorting through the other day. So, there we go, that's sorted. If anyone wants to see us go head-to-head with the Blackstone Fortress paint-off, then, just say.
Right.
Oh, there we go, thumbs up. Someone thinks that's a good idea.
We're nearly done with the extreme hard edge highlighting. Now, I'm doing this in minutes, guys. If you want to take your time on these miniatures, you can spend 4 or 5 hours, longer than that, to get the highlights as crisp and nice as you possibly can.
Do you know what this stream is missing? No? Tom, come here. I was saying the stream was missing something.
All right. What's going on?
Tom has come to join the stream.
Hi guys.
I've pulled him away from work. What do you think? You haven't seen this yet?
Not up close, so been trying to watch it on the stream just then.
Oh, no, you were working, Tom.
Yeah. I've had a minute now, so I'll come down and see what's going on.
Yeah, it's exactly what's happening.
So now we've done the extreme hard edge highlights, as it's known.
No pressure.
Let's show that on the camera. Let's see where... There it is.
Yeah, perfect. That is looking great. Why would you want to have them in there? Terrible grey.
Purple.
Yeah.
The purple's not bad.
Purple with gold gilding is nice, but I'm liking this red.
What we're going to use now is the glazed bloodletter. That's going to tie those colours together. It's going to tone down the orange, and it's going to make it look really good.
Yes, someone will watch that.
Yay!
Yeah.
Paint off.
Paint off.
Paint off would be cool.
Just don't give me like a air gun for the first time.
You work your way up to that.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1, go. I'll just one.
And as you can
we
see,
can paint Tom.
Yeah.
Get some body paints in. I'll paint you like a Terminator.
we're just painting the glaze on now, and as you can see, it's toning down the orange lovely.
That is cool. That is very cool.
Do they go over just like washes?
Just like a wash, yeah, really. You apply it in a nice, smooth, even coat.
So what do you need to be aware of when using the glazes?
When using the glazes, they're very simple to use. You can paint with a glaze, which makes things more complicated if you're actually painting in very, very thin layers to do colour transitions. But if you're painting in this technique where you actually do base paints, layering, and then use the glaze to tie it all together at the end, it's very simple to do.
Okay.
As you can see, I'm just literally placing it on and tying all those reds and oranges together.
Charlie is joined. Hello, Mr. Charlie. Charlie's definitely wants to see you do some tank painting
Oh
very
yes.
soon.
He'd love that.
Yeah, Charlie, what tank do you want to see painted? Let's we can make that happen. Artillery. Can you paint artillery like you can a tank? How do you fancy painting some artillery sometime?
Artillery, it's fine, yeah.
There you go, Charlie. We'll do some artillery for you. Definitely not because I have artillery that needs painting.
I try that all the time.
Have you got,
People don't get
what have
this.
you got the little, the base one where it's a couple of guys? And
Yeah, and the
like in a placement. Sort
yeah,
of thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Zeus. He wants Zeus Panzermech. No, I didn't pronounce that.
The Zeus Panzermech.
Panzermech.
So that's the Conflict 47
Yeah.
miniature.
Yeah, they're nice.
Which, I
Yeah.
think you've painted one of those up actually. Do you want me
Oh, have
to
you?
quickly grab one of these for you so you can show?
It's you, not me.
Yeah.
Because I haven't painted that up.
It's not much you haven't painted, though, is it?
No, I've painted a few miniatures in my time.
Okay, so Charlie, here comes your Zeus Panzermech. Here's one we made earlier.
So
Yeah, literally.
this is the Mammoth. So this is from Conflict 47. Sean painted this for James.
And it's part metal, part resin, and it does weigh quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a chunky beast.
It is.
Wow, yeah.
But it's
that
really
is.
cool. And he did quite a bit of nice weather in there as well.
Yeah.
Bits of rust and stuff on it.
Yeah. It's a lovely miniature to work on as well, actually.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. See, Charlie, way ahead of you. That was a Blue Peter moment.
So we've got to let this glaze dry.
Yep.
And then we're pretty much done with it, to be honest. I'm just going to add a little bit of an extreme hard edge highlight to the mask he's wearing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I rolled the bristles
Yes.
into that sharp point.
Now the thing is, which one of us is going to finish the model off?
I think you should, because then you'll be practicing.
Then I can be like, I did
That'd be
this.
good. Yeah, definitely.
I'll send you a picture of it when I'm done. Like, what have you done?
But once
Don't
that
touch the cloak.
Yeah.
once that all dries, though, we've painted. How long have we been on stream now? For
We're on
about?
stream for about just under 50 minutes and lots of me faffing around.
We've painted, we've base painted, we've layer painted, we've highlighted, and we've even added a glaze. So it doesn't take too long to get, nice looking miniatures on
That's
the
good, yeah.
tabletop.
Yeah.
That's really nice looking.
What do you think about the contrast paints?
I really like them.
So it's
I haven't,
like
I haven't, I haven't used them, Tom. But I was just about to dip my paintbrush in my tea. Then never do that, guys.
I've done that so many times. So, sorry. Jason Marsden's asking, I've never used a glaze before. Is there one for my desert theme with Ushabti bone as the main colour?
I believe there is a one. I don't know the name of all Games Workshop paints off the top of my head, but you'd be looking for a sepia type of glaze to bring them together. But if you look on Goblin Gaming's web store, you will be actually able to see all the different glazes that do. There's actually a really nice section where it says base, layer and glaze. Look at the glaze section and look for like a sepia type tone, and that would work really well for the desert theme, I would think.
Does this glaze leave it glossy? I wouldn't say it's drying overly glossy.
No, it shouldn't do. I believe these dry quite matte, as you can see there.
Yeah, they do dry matte.
Oh, what happened there?
They do three. Games Workshop does the Lamenter's yellow, Waywatcher's green, and the Bloodletter.
Yeah.
And Lamenter's yellow's probably the only one I would use over like a bone.
Yeah, there you go. Lamented yellow.
So
You
I
can
heard
make
that
your
from
own
Tom.
glazes, can't you?
Lamentus
Yeah, you
yellow.
can. But I believe that these new contrast paints that Tom just talked about a moment ago, you can, because they're so highly pigmented and they're thin as well, if you thin them more, they'll be perfect to use as glazes.
Yeah.
And I think, there's 36 colours in that range?
Shut me up, Tom, so you can get your face.
That one.
Yeah.
Just go through that door.
But yeah, I think that the new contrast paints are going to be fantastic. And
for painting something like this as well, when it's got a lot of detail, because there's been people questioning whether what they'll work best on, and looking at it like the Nurgle stuff, anything that's the new GW casts where they've got lots of detail.
Oh yeah,
should just really pick it up.
Oh, it will. They work very similar to a wash. But the difference between a wash and these paints is the pigmentation, I think, of the colours. They'll literally paint the miniature than just wash it, even though you're applying it like a wash. That's, I think, the benefit of them. You're applying it like a wash, but it's going to paint the whole miniature.
Yeah, super fast.
Yeah, super fast.
So people get
fun to use. We didn't use the black.
We didn't. What I was going to use the black for is, I can actually show you now. I was going to use it to mix it with a corn red.
Let's go and see what.
Darken up some bits.
Yeah, darken up the corn red a little.
Contrast speed painting in a Tuesday. Oh, so
contrast speed painting in Tuesday.
I have some plans for the contrast paints, which you will enjoy.
Okay.
Yes.
We're going to do some competitions.
Oh yes.
Oh, excellent.
And some videos with them. Yeah.
And
we can laugh at you trying to do them.
Oh, I'll be look like a pro.
Yeah.
I've got. I will share with you later what we're going to do with the contrast paints.
That's exciting.
To run, well, just for live, and we'll do a little giveaway with them too.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
If we go into the very, very extreme recesses of the cloak, we can create even more deeper shading, just adding a tiny amount of black there. You can wash your miniature, but what you find sometimes when you wash in a really nice cloak that's such a large area, you'll be left with staining behind from the actual wash. Whereas if you actually apply it into the exact area that you want it, you're not going to get any staining behind on the actual miniature. So here we can see there's a really nice crease there that if I just go into, it's going to really help pop out.
Shaped it nicely.
Yeah.
In a bit of a gradient.
Fantastic. That's the hard part, is being brave enough to do that.
Yeah.
I never do that.
Worry you'll ruin what you've done, the whole like all of what you've done.
I know I will.
But yeah, if you can see on camera there, you can see
those highlights coming out. That's ace. So that is a nice little tutorial. So that you can apply that to pretty much any model, with just by choosing slightly different. Well, the different
Colours,
colours, the same gradient. So
Yeah.
you could apply that to any colour by choosing deep, slightly less, and then off shade, brighter glaze.
Yeah, definitely.
So you could match that up almost paint pot for paint pot. 1, 2. So use 5 pots.
Yeah, I mean, you could even
an
use
entire
less.
cloak.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is you get down your base paint in a nice, smooth, even layer.
Yeah.
You can do it in 2 layers, 3 layers, it doesn't matter. As long as you apply it thin, then it will obviously make the miniature look really nice.
Yep.
And then obviously you want to highlight it, so then you go up to your layer paints, and then you don't have to again use a glaze, but I just find that adding that glaze, if you go extreme with the highlights, brings it all back together again.
Would you go back in and put some touch-up highlights, like with a pure orange, just like very thin, very small?
You can do. It depends on how you want it to look. If you want it to look more natural, you would probably leave it at this stage.
Yeah.
But if you want it to really pop on the tabletop, then you could go back in with your orange again, like I did earlier, and you can just make those highlights. Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. And the more that dries, the nicer and nicer it looks.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Looks really cool.
It's great. So if you were going to do it to the normal colour scheme on here, you would basically be choosing the deepest purples.
Yeah.
See, like I said, you can apply this really easily. If you want to do the Genestealer Locus as per the picture, just instead of using the reds and the orange tones, you're going to use the purples and the purple tones.
Yeah.
And you'll end up with a really nice looking model. And then the only difference is they've edged in gold.
The gold,
the
yes.
fine detail there. But we haven't got the hood on ours, because I really wanted to give you a harder time.
With a little face mask.
Yeah, that looks fab. Awesome.
you.
So if there's no more questions for Sean, we need to get some lunch. So with that, thank you very much. We will.
Should we get some pizza in?
Yeah.
Pizza time.
Yeah.
We may be back with a live quickly for judging this basing competition, and then we've got some night to play. Night Underworlds.
Underworlds.
Oh, Underworlds, can't wait.
Underworlds to play because we've got an Underworlds tournament going on right now. Sort of mini.
It's really
tournament.
cool.
Yeah, just a couple of people playing.
Yeah, and you haven't seen any of the bases yet.
No, I'm looking forward to
nor
that. I
have
can't
you.
wait.
No,
Yeah, I have. I'm quite looking forward to making these two look at them reaction cam style.
Yeah.
Ah, awesome.
Yeah.
So what time do you want to do that at?
We'll do that as an impromptu. We're not in. We'll get our lunch in. We'll
Yeah.
chill. We've made you work hard.
Yeah.
And we'll be back maybe in a couple of hours' time.
Okay.
So thanks very much for watching the stream, guys.
Cheers,
We
guys.
will
Thank
catch you
you.
later. If you've enjoyed it, share it out. Let us know what you thought. We'd love to be doing more of these with you. So have a good one.